Welcome to APCUG's Wednesday workshops, where we get together on an afternoon or morning and learn a lot about technology. Today, we're going to be having a workshop on Windows 11, which is on a lot of your minds today and in the next few weeks and months as you wait for this. Our presenter today is Tom Burt, and Tom wrote his first computer programming way back, don't want to really say it that way, but in Fortran in 1964 at good old Wayne State University. And that began a career spanning 61 years and continuing. Tom has worked as a software engineer and IT manager in the automotive, construction, aerospace, banking, and software tools industries. Tom got his first Apple II computer back in 1982. And in 1984 was writing software for IBM PCs. Since retiring from Silicon Valley to Sun City, Summerlin in Las Vegas 21 years ago, Tom has been active as a part-time software developer, webmaster working for the community's IT department. Tom is also very active as vice president for the Sun City Summerlin Computer Club. His activities include giving seminars on technical topics, editing the monthly newsletter, maintaining the club website, and developing custom software for managing the club's activities. I will remind all of you again that if you have questions for Tom during his presentation, put them in the chat box addressed to Judy. Don't do it to Tom, he won't see them. If you have problems with your Zoom, Bill James is here working with me. You can either send a text to Bill or to me if there's a Zoom problem, and otherwise we'll get underway. So Tom, Windows 11.
All right, thank you very much, John. And thanks to Judy for inviting me to do this. Very pleased to be able to present to you today, and I welcome all of you. This is quite a large crowd. And I'll do my best to answer your questions. Why don't I go ahead and share my screen? I have a slide deck and we'll work through that. Let me put, here we go. All right, so I gave this essentially the same talk to our club about a month ago. And at that time, I was working with a late insider build. And since then, I've been able to install the production release of Windows 11 into a virtual machine. That's what we're going to be looking at today. Here's our agenda, basically. And the bulk of the time we're going to spend in actually doing live demo of the various features of Windows 11. After I've kind of moved through that, I've got some slides on things like hardware requirements, whether it makes sense to upgrade, how to get it, compatibility issues, that may be something of interest. If you buy a new PC, I've highlighted a few tools you can use for moving your data settings and programs over to the new one. We'll take a little look at the Microsoft Store. And then at the end, I've got some nice web links that people can follow, links to other demos and tutorials, and links to some articles about hacks that you can use if you're fairly technically savvy. I had to use one of these. Let me click over and wake up. Here's Windows 11. This is running in a VMware virtual machine. And I'll mention right at the get-go, my current desktop PC is not compatible at this point with Windows 11, and yet here I am running it in a virtual machine. Basically did a couple of hacks to be able to do a clean install. So it is possible to do. And let me, from there, let's just move on in. Now, I'm going to keep this on the screen and kind of walk down as I do the demo topic by topic. Helps me make sure I covered everything. And, you know, it'll keep us sort of in a logical flow for what we're doing. Up at the top, again, I've got links to a few articles and a couple of videos, actually, that you can watch. And I'm assuming my PowerPoint deck, or basically it's a PDF file, will be available to people. If not, it's actually up on the Sun City Computer Club website. And if need be, I can provide a link to that.
We'll be sending it out.
All right, that'll be good. So with that, let's dive in. One of the most visual, let's say visible things about Windows 11, other than this glorious artwork that they have, I still haven't figured out exactly what this thing is. It looks to me like kind of a folded cloth napkin that somebody sort of bunched up and then untwirled, but I have no idea. It could be an n-dimensional vector space being graphed out, something like that. Here is the start menu as constituted in Windows 11. And there are a number of elements to this. So you notice again, right away, they've decided to go with round corners. You'll see this not everywhere, but quite frequently. I guess they were trying for a softer look. Instead of the tiles that you would see in Windows 10, like this, they've gone back to some icons. And again, they've kind of redone a lot of the icons. They're a little prettier. And this may be more than one. If you hit over here, you've got some down arrows and up arrows. So the set of icons may span several pages of this display here. Down at the bottom, this is basically a variation on recent files. And again, they have a few shown. If you click more, you get a more extensive list, and this is scrollable. You notice again, they've gone to these scroll bars, fade in and out. There's a lot of that. They're kind of skinny at times, so depending on how agile your fingers are, it may be a little easier or harder to work with this.
Tom, could you make your VM a little bit, full screen?
I'll try. I don't know what will happen with Zoom if we do that.
Let's do it, because people are saying they're having a hard time reading.
They can't read this. I don't think the type's going to get any bigger though. Let's see. I think I can do it up here. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and that's still working. All right, I'll stay here. When I need to go back to my PowerPoints, I'll go out of full screen.
That works for us.
All right, it won't be too much. So as you can see, these basically are little icons that would run programs. And just to illustrate that, there's Notepad. And yeah, even Notepad's got round edges now. That's interesting. Round corners. This is a test. I don't want to save it. So now I've got to click this again to bring it back. You'll see there's a gear now. You can get to settings. I'm going to do that a little later in the presentation. There's also a button here to get to the list of all your installed apps. You click that, and then again, you get a scrollable list up and down. And you can click any of these and run one of the apps. Let me see. Later we'll be doing a little demo. Why don't I do the snipping tool just to have one come up? All right, and again, you could say new snip and then select an area of the screen. And now I've got basically a bitmap that's in here that could be, I believe this is where, no, this is a little, yeah, I haven't tried this one before. Anyway, you can copy these to the clipboard and do things with them. So just as an example of running an app from the all apps list. Let's try to find something that's not pinned here real quick. Well, let me take the snipping tool again. If you right click, you can pin it to your start menu. You can actually uninstall the app right from there. Some of the functions of that individual app are displayed right here in that menu. If you click more, you can pin it to your taskbar. You can go to the settings for that app, rate and review it, or share the app as well. Let me go back to the main view. Actually, let me go ahead and pin it to start. And now if I hit the back button, it will be, see, there's the snipping tool that's now showed up. One of the options, if I right click it now, is I can unpin it, I can move it to the top, which means I want it in the primary pane. And then once it's here, you can drag it around and put it somewhere if you want. While you're in the start menu, maybe there are some things here that you don't really particularly care to have there. The idea would be you want the ones you use a lot to be up in this first pane. So I never use TikTok. I can unpin that from the start, and then maybe Instagram, the same thing. And as you unpin ones that are in there, other ones that were further down move up and into the start menu. And again, if I had, maybe I want the File Explorer to be in that primary pane. So now it's up at the top. And you can move these around a little bit, whatever suits you. So the thing's pretty customizable. I think that's everything I have about the start menu. So let me see, I'm going to come back out so I can get back to my slide deck. All right, second thing to talk about would be the taskbar. And I don't need to be full screen. It used to be, in fact, I could do it down here in my Windows 10, but I don't want to mess things up right now. You could take your taskbar and drag it to the right edge, drag it to the top, or drag it to the left. That's gone. It's on the bottom, and it's going to stay on the bottom. You notice, though, that the individual icons down here are now in the center. And when a program is running, and again, let's say I'll launch my little, this is an app I wrote myself. I wanted a digital clock calendar, sort of a gadget that I could have sitting on the screen. It's got an option to drop down and show me a mini calendar. And I use this a lot because I edit the newsletter and I'm constantly messing up days and dates. And the worst thing you can do when you put something out as a notice is say Wednesday, October 28th or Thursday, October. So I use this a lot just to make sure I've got my dates and days correct. I can close it up. Now I highlighted this just because when it's running, you see it's down here on the taskbar. And as an app, this is written in VB.NET. It's not a very complicated app, but it was kind of fun. Actually, I correct myself. I wrote this one in C#. Been 6, 8 months since I did that. Just something I wanted to do to get good at C#. Let's open the File Explorer for a second, just so you can see, again, the fluidity of this is very nice. I'm going to talk about that in a little more detail later. Now, if you don't particularly like having your icons in the center, you can right-click in the taskbar and go to the taskbar settings. And when you get here, there are some of these toggle switches to turn off or on certain of the things that are permanently there. And we're going to look at widgets and the task view, and the chat one is there. Chat is actually part of Microsoft Teams. I'm going to turn that off, and you see that icon disappeared then from down here. I can turn it back on. Let me pull down here again. There are some touchpads and things you can turn on. Pen menu, I don't have any of that stuff, so it wouldn't make sense. You can control what's going on down here. They call it taskbar corner. Now, which icons are in the taskbar corner? The others are, when you hit this up chevron, you get a few more. But you can click in this, and then you get an option to say which ones you want to be visible there. Right now, I've just got Windows Update Status and Microsoft OneDrive are showing there. I'm not sure, I guess that's this thing over here, 5 new notifications. But let's say I wanted the Teams, for instance, to be on. All right, and there's the Microsoft Teams icon now, is in the visible part of, we used to call this the tray. Now they're calling it the taskbar corner. All right, maybe I'll turn that back off. And you can hit the up to sort of close these back up. Last thing is taskbar behaviors. And this is a little collection of settings. And here's one that controls where these icons go. You have the choice of center or left. If you pick left, they're kind of over here more in the classic position. And now as you run apps, they build out to the right. And if you like them, some people do like them in the center. The new, when you run programs, they will still build out to the right, but everything will recenter itself as it goes. Okay. And I think that's pretty much everything on the taskbar for the moment. Let's come back here. It's not really a new feature, but in Windows 10, they had a version of this that was sort of over in the tray. They're calling it Widgets now. And let me get the right one. It's this icon. And again, you can take this icon off the taskbar. These are sort of animated tiles. And this is when they got rid of, in the start menu, they got rid of the tiles. You see some of these, most of mine aren't animated, but photos and the weather and a few things like that are kind of live tiles. Well, they've redone that now so that you've got a weather applet running here and it's updating itself. My stock watch list is here. If you click these dots, you can customize the widget, and that would let me add. Let me go ahead and, oh, I see. I guess I've got to hit a plus here. All right, GE was added. Anyway, this if you have a few hot stocks you want to be watching, you can put them in here. For instance, Photos is basically linked to the Photos app, and this is showing me thumbnails of a set of photos that I've got. Interestingly, if I just click on one of these, it immediately opens that picture up in the Photos app. So it's kind of neat. Actually, they're all there, and then I can do things with them. This is happens to be my brother. Pictures of him and me at various times. And let's go back here. There is also baseball scores, a sports app. There's a news feed. And again, there's quite a few of these. If you don't like a particular story, you can X out of it. They want to know what you didn't like about it. And I can just say I wasn't interested, refresh. But they're going to keep feeding me different stories. After a while, they learn your politics and what you're interested in. That goes on for quite a ways. And again, there's an option. They have a few more widgets available. You can choose from a set here. The ones that are checked, I already have. And, oh, let's click. I'll put the to-do list on. That might be a handy thing to have. All right, and I've got, I put some in the to-do list yesterday when I was rehearsing, just so we'd have something to look at. But anyway, I can go directly to to-do and work on these if I think that's what happens if I click this again. Yeah. All right, well, that's the widgets feature. And let's take a look. Another new thing they put in is the idea of layouts for windows that you snap. Now for this one, let's go back full screen in my virtual machine. So let me start up, I'll run Google Chrome. And by the way, this is just to illustrate, Chrome is an external third-party app. It does run fine on Windows 11. I didn't have to do anything. Let's run the File Explorer. And what else would be interesting? Well, we'll run Microsoft Edge. We'll have two web browsers going at the same time. You notice I've set these up so they point to our computer club's website. Now, the idea of these layouts is if you highlight a window and then hover over that square, that would be the full screen zoom. Since I've got three windows, I'm going to pick a layout that lets me have three panes. And all right, and then I'm just going to click on this one. So you notice they've all snapped out to the borders of the various panes. And I can actually, at the boundaries, if I want, I can drag these around a bit and change the sizes as I need to. And as you can see, they had a variety of prepackaged layouts. You can still go full screen on any one window if you want to. And that works pretty well. Let me put him back in that window. All right. So I haven't figured out if this is really a useful thing or not. It saves you time if you really want to do for me, it'd be more working side by side. And let me come back and close that one. And now if I were to go like this, quite often you're working with two documents at the same time, and it's nice to have them go side by side like this. Again, I'm going to come back to the Explorer in a bit. And at this point, I'm back to just one full screen window. All right, and let me go back once again to my PowerPoints. I mentioned you're seeing that these rounded corner apps are, I think, what they're calling Fluent UI. It's different way of developing apps than the older classic Win32, .NET kinds of things. When we look at the settings, which will be coming up toward the end of this demo, we'll see that most of those apps are done in what they call Fluent UI. All right, let me get back to this screen. Another feature that has been there in Windows 10, I don't know, I don't use it much there, so I can't say for sure what's new and different. But they have the idea that you can create more than one desktop. So let me hit the plus, and I'm going to name this one Gazette. That's the name of our newsletter, is the Gigabyte Gazette. And I might then set this one up. All right, let me click on it. You can't visibly see any difference right now. But let me again open an Explorer. And I'm going to put that on the, I'll take advantage of that tiling feature. And I'm going to do one other thing while we're here. This PC, I'm going to map a network drive. This is a feature of VMware. You can actually map the virtual machine to a share on your real host machine. But in your case, you might just be, gotta wait. All right. Now, the reason I did this is I can now go to a folder I have for the Computer Club. And then there's the Gigabyte Gazette. And here's my November issue, which I'm going to open. Actually, let me do that again, because if I go open with, well, I'll just stay with WordPad. I just want to demo the idea of, all right, so now I might be, and what typically happens is people email me their articles and I'm editing the Gazette and I'm copying and pasting out of the article that they sent me and putting it in here. So again, this desktop is now set up so I can work side by side. But I could go back to my main desktop and start doing other things. Maybe I've got my web browser running in this one, or I'm watching my stock quotes or whatever. So there's a browser running there. But then I say, okay, I'm going to get back to working on the Gigabyte Gazette. So for purposes of managing visual clutter, the multiple desktops can be kind of nice. One thing I looked at, it appeared that these do not survive rebooting. When you do restart the machine, it seems like you're back to just the one desktop. So you would have to take a few minutes and set this up. It may be there's a way to save them, but I haven't found it yet. Anyway, at some point, if you decide I'm done with this desktop, there, I can hit the X and just get rid of it. Now, one thing that surprised me, when I close a desktop, all the open apps move over to the other desktop that was open. You want to be careful if you're doing this. Don't close your last desktop. I did that once by accident, and took a little bit of a scramble to get back, but it does work. Reminds me, one other thing I forgot to point out, on the start menu, up at the top, you've got the search. When you click that, actually it takes you directly to the search, which is down here. I'm going to show you that in a second. And also, they put the power options here. It's a little bit different. You've still got shutdown, restart, and sleep. And I won't do any of those right now because I want to keep the virtual machine running. Okay. Let's take a look at the search bar because that's the next topic. And the box to type in is up at the top. And let's suppose, let's see what we turn up here. Windows 11 compatibility hacks. There seem to be new ones out every day. So right away, it pops me up in a pane over here. How to install on unsupported CPUs, how to bypass installation, and so on. So you can use it to search. In this right now, it's in all mode. I could have said just search the web or search for anything in my documents. See web results, it says. If I want to find something on the machine, like the old control panel, the best match is the control panel app. I can click this and it'll open up, and there's the old classic control panel, Windows 7 style. Looks pretty much the same. You can go category, you can go small icons or large icons, whatever you like. So if you're not sure where an app is, you can use the search to find it on your machine. Let's suppose, I think this works, star.txt. And it's actually searching all of the drives. I guess I copied a few in here. All right, if I double click that, this actually is a dictionary of words that I pulled out of Linux. And that's a story maybe for another day, but I've got some friends, we have a Friday session, but we were looking for a dictionary of all words for a Scrabble game kind of thing. But let me leave it at that. And again, you can use this to search the web, although you've also got a search in the web browsers that you can use. The dots over here, let you control a few things. Let's look at search settings here. So that got me into the settings app again, specifically under privacy and security, and then a subcategory is search permissions. So you can play with these a bit or tweak them. You can search history on the device or not. And I haven't had time even in 2 months to try every possible setting in Windows. I've been working pretty hard at it. This is kind of nice because it does remember. Let me put in one more. I'm going to do paint.net. And I'll leave it in all. And we'll see what we turn up here. There is a version of paint.net in the Microsoft Store. Unfortunately, it saw Paint and it decided I wanted to run the Paint app, which is one of the installed apps there. Didn't work out so well. You can also, here's some other search folders, music, and so on. All right, that was search. Microsoft Teams is now built in. You can just get to it directly by going to all apps, scroll down, and there it is right there. I think I put it in here as well. Teams is, oh, I guess I didn't. All right. Definitely not. Well, let me go down. We'll just run it just so you can see it for a second. Microsoft Teams. So this is kind of a collaboration app. I added my wife to the contacts, but she's not here. I can't have a chat with her. You can do, just like Zoom, you can use it as a video conferencing tool. There are some settings here again. That's my picture. Anyway, when you want to start it, they have a sort of your personal chat room, and you can do various things with it. But I don't have anybody I could contact right ready to hand. All right, and what else were they talking? Let's go look at the Windows Store. And the easy way to do that again is the Microsoft Store. There we go. Now this isn't really technically part of Windows 11, but they claim they've reworked the store. I don't go there very often, so I can't tell you exactly what's different, but they've got a lot of categories again. most of the stuff at the beginning is featured games. Here are the top free apps. You can get iTunes. You get they show you the star ratings on these. So typically you may not want to bother with apps that only have a couple of stars. Though personally, iTunes I've found is very nice if you're managing your music collection. And let's see, once again, let me do my paint.net search here. I didn't see again, it didn't, I got to put the period in there for sure. And you can't, I've got to hit it this way, yeah. There it comes. Okay, and this is an image editing app I use a lot. The Microsoft Store version isn't free, so I tend to still go get it directly from paint.net, but there's a lot here. They also suggest similar apps, and just for the heck of it, let's put in Adobe. And that should bring up, yeah. So they've got Photoshop elements there, but all that's going to happen if you click some of these is it'll take you to the Adobe website where you can purchase the app. They're really just lightweight triggers to get you to the right place. Lightroom is there though, and it's completely free. The Acrobat Reader, of course, is free. Photoshop Express is another one. This I played with. It's kind of a lightweight version of Photoshop. Fairly good. I mean, Microsoft has their built-in Photos app, which would, I'd say it's similar. And here's a free PDF editor, which is interesting. This is not from Adobe. But anyway, you can spend time in the store. It's worth looking around if you're looking for apps. They seem to have quite a few that are PDF related. Alrighty. And just as a side mention, I looked high and low, and there is no sign of Internet Explorer 11. Not in the list of installed apps. And when we get to settings in a moment, if you look at the apps, it used to be you could enable Internet Explorer 11 there, but I think it's completely gone in Windows 11. All right, so that's it for the basic tour. Let's take a look at a couple of the apps that are in Windows 11. And I'll start with Mail. That's right up here. Now, I personally don't use Mail, but it's there. You can connect your email accounts to it. I did connect one of mine, and this is the inbox. There's nothing really surprising about it as a mail app. If you click, you've got a viewing pane over here. And this seems to work. You can sort of spread out or hide the names of these accounts. You can add a new email account there. Down here, it's they have a calendar. Basically, it's just a link to the Microsoft Calendar app. And you can, I'll put one in just for the, so today we're doing the APCUG what do we call Wednesday workshop, right? There we go. All right, and this time was 9 o'clock, and it's going to go till about 11. I could put a comment in. So it's very much like most of the other calendar apps, and we can say here Zoom. All right, and then I can hit save, and now that app is on my calendar. So it's a very typical calendar app. There's also down here, see, it's reminding me that event is started, so it'll pop out reminders. Here is the people app, and they're just, again, some of my family, and there's my wife. Since I'm using my Microsoft account to log into this Windows 11, it's actually managed to pick up information from my Microsoft account, and it synchronizes with this one. That can be a nice feature, just depends on how you operate. If we click more here, it gives me access to some other folders. And as far as my inbox, when you hover over these, this is Fluent UI again, kind of. There's the little trash icon, and I can flag it. So I can, my Amazon order is ready. Okay, that's great. And so on. You can drag these around. If you want to create more folders, I think that's, yeah, let's say saved, something like that. And now I have a saved folder. If I go back to my inbox, let's see, yeah, when I start dragging. So you can create other folders and put them in there. So pretty nice mail app. They've also got a switch, or it says switch to to-do. And here's that to-do list I was talking about. Takes it a minute. Fascinating. It's getting that out of my groceries somewhere. Yeah, okay. Add to my day. Let's see, let me try planned. Planned is a view where you're looking ahead. So Thursdays at our house, I've done the meal plan, and tomorrow we get online and go grocery shopping. And just to have a couple of examples, if I click on this, all right, I just checked that off as being done. So that's kind of nice. It's really sort of a new version of the Tasks app. And again, we've got some settings here. You can change your signature, default fonts, all that kind of stuff, what you want to do with the reading pane. All right, so just for some examples of what that looks like. All right, and we've seen calendar. We could take a look at photos again. And let me do that from the taskbar. So when I bring it up, you have the ability to work with albums. I haven't created any here yet. You can go to folders, or you can use this collection view. What's interesting is in this collection view, it's got them ranked in chronological order. They sort of go back in history. And as I drag this down, I'm looking back in time. And I put a few pictures in the virtual machine just to have some. These are pretty old. My wife and I took a trip up to Monterey Bay quite a while ago now. And somewhere near the bottom here, there's some pictures of Pebble Beach Golf Course. Thought I have those. Yeah, there we go. If I click on any particular picture, as you might guess, it's going to open it up. And now I can do the usual editing things that you do with a photo editor. I can zoom with a slider. Now, Photos has been in Windows 10 and probably Windows 8. So there's not a lot new in the photo editing part that I can see. But it does also act as a photo management app. And let's try Groove Music real quick. I put a couple of tunes in just so you could see them. Groove, where did you go? Well, let's do it this way. Okay. So I've just got 3 songs here. If I go, I think My Music should show me. There they are. So it's somewhat of a music organizer. Depending on the view you want, you can see artwork and albums. I tend to mainly want to work with the song view. Here I'll see my sounds on. We can play one. Here. Go for a couple of seconds. All right. Yeah, Dave Gruzin's written a lot of the background music you hear for TV shows, and they're into mainly jazz. All right, and let's look at the File Explorer a little bit more, just to kind of highlight. Now, if you look at the Windows 10 File Explorer, pop that up for a second. They put the ribbon interface in. Actually, I think that came in Windows 10. So you got used to this, and then for reasons that bemuse me, in Windows 11, let me go back to my full screen here. Okay. They went away from that again. So what you're back to is, you know, a pane down the left with all the folder links. This is the same as in 10. You've got content panes here. And this folders pane seems to be sort of your profile folders. I noticed desktop downloads, documents, pictures, videos, music. That's my Maps drive, that E drive that I did. And then down here, they've got a recent files list. So when you first open it up, that's kind of what you get. These icons come to life as you have selected. Like if I select my Gigabyte Gazette folder, there's a copy icon, share icon. I can play with the view, and this window I can stretch things out a bit so we can see better. If I were to go, say, and just click on C, I get the usual file list, and I can click on those and work my way in. Here's a folder called Tom's Tools, and I just have that little clock calendar program. If I select that, now I have a few more choices. I can rename it. I can delete it. And that sends it to the trash or the recycle bin. And again, the new menu is folder shortcut, compressed zip folder if you want to start a zip file. There's the cut icon. Now, if I do copy, and now see a paste icon becomes available along with the rename. So what they worked out is most of the common actions you can do by clicking on these little icons up at the top of the screen. Let me click pictures. There's my whole set of pictures again. And this is going to open back up in photos. All right, and that was the clubhouse of Pebble Beach Golf Course. Just to have one. Now you can play with the view, same old thing. Details, or you can get the list view. And I'm currently, this is something I was going to highlight. The default view, they did this because Windows 11 is used on a lot of tablets. There's a version for the ARM CPUs. And it gets very hard to specifically tap on things when they're too close together. So they came up with this view where things are spread out a bit more to make them easier to touch. In the compact view, you see they go back to the narrower spacing, which is fine if you're using a mouse. So that's just something, depending on, you may want to check the compact view just so you get more files on the screen. All right, let me show you. I'm going to go back to my Tom Tools folder for a second. This time I'm right-clicking, and you see you've got the typical, you could just open it, which would run it. There is an option for Run as Administrator. And if this is a program you want to have an icon for, either on the Start menu or down here under More, I probably wouldn't want to pin this to Start because I put an icon here on the desktop anyway. But actually, one of the Show More options is the old Send to Desktop Create shortcut. Now, this is a duplicate shortcut. But once it's on the desktop, I can press F2 or right-click and say Rename. And I'll put a 2 on this one. So this isn't really new, but that's, if you want to make an icon on your desktop for some particular exe, that would be the way you do it. So they haven't really gotten rid of that. But I found it was a little frustrating. I basically, and you know, on Windows 10 and prior, I'm used to just right-clicking, and all my favorite things that I want to do are right there in the pop-up menu. They do pop up, again, the copy, paste, rename, and share. So I guess it's just a getting used to it thing. But you can also click this, and then this secondary list comes up. Way down at the bottom is Properties. You can still pull up And here, if you always want to run a program like in compatibility mode for some earlier Windows, that's still there. There's security stuff. You can change permissions on the file. Details. Let's see, the sharing. Yeah, for advanced. There's all the usual stuff. I don't think I have file sharing turned on yet in this version, so that's why it may not be offering me sharing. Anyway, the functionality's all there. They've just done it a little differently, and it may take a bit of getting used to. Let's see. I'll get to God mode, unfortunately. It's all right, back out of full screen, back to my PowerPoints, and we're moving on. So now we're into the settings interface, and easiest way to do that, let's go back to full screen. I was kind of oh dear, where'd my gear go? Here it is. Okay, it just slid over. Let me put that back up there. Okay. I like this that they made the gear something that's fairly prominent, easy to hit, and it's easy to see. So this is the Windows 11 settings app. And we've got a scroll bar again. So what they've done is down this left-hand pane, they've got the major categories. And things have moved around a bit, so they're not necessarily where you were used to finding them. The system category, we have display, sound, notifications, all this. Focus assist is a way to sort of control. I can't click all of these. We'd be here for a long time. They have the troubleshooting, and this can be good if your machine's acting up. You can run the troubleshooter. The recovery one in particular, if you need to boot into the BIOS, let's pop that open. Fix problems without resetting your PC. Reset. That literally will reinstall Windows. Don't do that unless you're absolutely in a lot of trouble. Advanced startup. Now again, if I go to this, I have a fear I'll lose our connection, but you go into advanced startup, that'll give you some options to boot from some other device than your hard drive, like your CD, DVD. Or there's an option to boot into the BIOS settings. And you can do this in 10 as well, but in 10, this is under Windows Update and recovery, something like that. It's the same functionality, but in a different place. All right, let me, this is nice too. You can just click breadcrumbs to go back. If you want to learn about your storage, it'll give you a lot of information here. It's scanning my drive right now to get the information. All right. And what about, real quick, let's look at the display settings. One that's been around, when you're working on your PC at night, you may want to turn on night light. I haven't seen much of a visual effect here, but it uses warmer colors. The The idea is the bluer light tends to keep you awake. It stimulates your body, and if you're at a time of night when you want to get ready to go to bed, you may want to use night lights so you're not getting stimulated by your screen. You can change the zoom factor. Now, let's see if I go to 125. Yeah, now my text is all a bit bigger. So that would possibly help with readability here. All right, but let me take it back to 100 for now. All right. And if you have multiple displays, you have some settings here that you can control. I don't, so it's not offering them to me. One thing that you may need to work with this, in our computer club classroom, we have the instructor PC is at the front of the room. It's also connected up to an overhead projector. We have a 150-inch screen, and we slave the projector to the same display that's on the instructor's desk. But when Microsoft Windows first sees that, it thinks I've got two displays, and it extends them. And I had to go in and change the settings to say mirror, so that the projector and the instructor screen were showing the same thing. So be aware of that. Depending on what you're doing, you may want to have to do that. There's a bunch of other settings here. And let's go back. Should there any other thing I should highlight here? Remote desktop. Let me click that just real quick. This is a facility. You have to be running Windows 10 Pro. Then your PC can act as a remote desktop server, which means another PC can remote in and connect to your PC via that tool. I've got it turned off because, again, I don't really have a need right now. But it may be handy. A lot of the businesses do this now. If you're working from home, but you have a desktop PC at the office, they'll set up a VPN connection, and then you can remote in from home to your desktop PC. And when I was working for Sun City, I did that a lot. Just made it easier to not have to be, particularly if you're in the IT department. Seems like things always break at 10 at night. And it's much nicer to remote in from home than having to drive down there and go in the server room. Okay, and the About screen, this is a nice one to know about. Again, this is pretty much the same as Windows 10. It'll tell you what your processor is, how much RAM. I gave my virtual machine 6 gigabytes and 2 processors. All my device ID, product ID. Down here, it tells you what version of Windows you're running, when it was installed, and so on. You can find out your product key and your activation status. And again, you can go to the device manager from the About screen, and you can even control BitLocker. So that's the About. Mainly what you want to know is this stuff up here. By the way, my AMD Ryzen 5 2400G, which has a built-in graphics processor on it, bought that 3 years ago. I built the desktop that I'm running today and doing this demo on. And somewhat to my surprise, it is not on the list of compatible CPUs for Windows 11. So were it not for one of the registry hacks, I couldn't have installed Windows even on this virtual machine. Okay, let's see. Probably we want to look at network and internet real quick. Here it's telling me I've just got one virtual Ethernet connection going, but that's typically what you would see. I've set it up as a private network. That's if you're going to do file sharing or printer sharing, you have to do that. If I click on this, it'll open up and give me a whole bunch of stats. So there's where I made it private. I could configure my firewall if I want to. What's neat is down here, it gives me my IPv4 address, my IP DNS, gives me my IPv6 address. Here's the physical MAC address. So all the information you used to have to go to the command prompt and type commands in to find this stuff out is nicely displayed here. Let's see, if I were on a metered connection, this would be the case if you're using your cellular data plan. You know, they typically cap the number of gigabytes you can download per month. So you might want to turn that on, and that changes the behavior somewhat. You can even set a data limit. All right, and you can set up a VPN. Let's click on advanced. Let's see what my data usage has been. Come on. All right, so I get a little histogram here with all my, what apps are using data. None of mine are doing very much right now. And you can tweak the Windows firewall here if you need to. And more network. I think this gets me back to the old, properties. So this is the old control panel interface. If you need to get in and be fairly nitty gritty, you can turn off some of these protocols or on, whatever you need to do. Okay. So that's network and internet. And let's go to personalization, because this is a place where you, probably when you first get it, you'll spend some time. First thing, obviously, you can fiddle with your background. And let me click that. So your choices are, they've got some stock images. And I'm running the light theme. We'll do themes in a second. But I also tried the dark theme, and that downloaded the dark picture, which I liked better. So what I'm showing is the background or the wallpaper from the dark theme. But you can pick anything. This was actually one of the pictures of our trip to Monterey. Let me try that one just so you can see for a second. So you can use any image here. Okay, let me get back to my settings. So you can choose a photo. Over here, you can just, if you want to go with a plain solid color, you can. You can configure a slideshow and have a list of photos that it'll scroll through. All the usual stuff. Let me go back and colors. You can choose an accent color, and that shows up in title bars and places like that. Let's see, I'll just pick just something that would look different. All right, so sport green, but the only app I'm running that has a title bar right now is my clock up here. So when it has the focus, its title bar is green now. It's used in certain other places, but I actually like that blue color better. Come on. If you don't like any of their palette, you can customize the colors. I don't know why show accent color on start and taskbar. That's grayed out on me. And that may be some artifact of running on the virtual machine. Okay, what else? You can tweak your lock screen, but I don't think I'll go there. If we go to themes, there are a variety of, if you choose a theme, it sort of sets all of these things at one time. And there are more themes if you want to go to the store, if you don't like any of the ones that came built in. There are some high contrast themes if you're somewhat vision impaired or sensitive to light. Let's see what those look like. Yeah, they're almost black and white, most of them. So night sky. But you might need those depending on, I see you notice it took me over to accessibility for that. So let me go back to personalization. And again, the taskbar settings are, so many of these settings are linked from multiple places. This is your start menu. Again, you can, like if you don't want the recently added apps or show recently opened items, maybe you don't like that recent list particularly, you could turn that off. Let's see what that did now. Yeah. So there's some customization on that if you want to. It's pretty good. You can say which folders appear next to the power button. Okay. That's, let's see, maybe I'll, just for that, I'll put documents. And maybe I'll put settings, what the heck. All right, let's see what that looks like now. Yeah, they show up as icons over here. So there's settings and there's documents. So again, that's kind of just quick shortcuts if you want to get there. It seems to me if settings is up there already, you probably don't need it there. But you could decide certain things might be handy to have there. All right, trying to think if there's anything else on personalization here. Probably not enough for this session, so we want to keep going. Real quick, let's look at accounts. So I'm set up as an administrator account. Recommendation generally is you should set up an account that's not an administrator for most of your day-to-day activities, just because it makes it a little harder for the hackers to get in if you're not an administrator. And then you log in to the administrator account when you need to. You set one up. Let's see what Windows backup looks like here. It's odd that they put backup in accounts. Okay, I can't find much there. You can control your sign-in options. And if you have a camera, I don't, right now that's not available in my virtual machine. But you can actually use your camera and just looks at your face and will log you in. You can use a PIN or a physical security key. You can choose any of these options if you want. And There's various other settings down here too that you can play with. You can personalize your lock screen, have various things show up on there. All right, I think, and somewhere here, family and other users would be where you add additional users who can log into your PC if you want to. I usually set it up. My wife can log into my machine. That's about it. I might set up one of my sons. You may want to think about that a little. There have been, APCUG's done other talks on the digital legacy considerations, and you want to make it relatively easy after you're departed for somebody other than yourself to be able to log into your machine, because otherwise it's a bloody mess trying to sort through all those accounts and things. Oops, I clicked on calendar and I probably shouldn't have. It's just alerting me. Okay, back out of full screen. Back here. You can get to, as I've been showing, maybe I didn't show that. Come on. There. The other way, you can get to some of this stuff just by right-clicking on your desktop. So display settings and personalize are handy right there. And let me go back to my, I gotta go background. And see, I just changed myself to dark mode accidentally there. I'll leave it. But that got me back to that darker picture. Okay, I'm going to pick that one. Anyway, that's a good thing. You can see dark mode for a second here. Now when I open the start menu now is quite dark and the lettering is white. All right, and I had hoped to show you God mode. It's another way to do settings. I did what I call the right magic incantations, which is create an empty folder and name it God mode dot. And this was the long string wrapped in curly braces that's supposed to tell the Windows Explorer you want God mode. But I tried it yesterday, and it's just opening me up in the Explorer. And this was working fine a month ago on one of the insider builds. And I've looked around, I can't find out why it's not working. It may be, again, because I'm in a virtual machine. So I apologize. I can show you God mode on Windows 10. It's right here. And it opens up in a sort of down this side, it is sort of the Explorer view, but essentially what you've got are simple links that'll take you, they are in categories. Just about every setting is in the list here. They're alphabetically ordered. And sometimes it can be really hard navigating through the settings interface that we were just looking at to find where in the heck is a particular setting. All right, so let me move on. I'm kind of out of my demo, but I can, when we get to the Q&A, I can go back. So let me, few things to know, just versions of Windows 11, it's not really too different. There's a home, there's a professional. Forgive me on the pricing. I tried and it's just not clear what you would really pay for a brand new license for Windows 11 Home or Pro. one article I ran into thought those were the prices, but I'm skeptical. If you go shopping on the web for Windows 11 product key, you'll find these discount places that are selling them for 35 bucks or so. Be very careful. On whether those things actually are legit. A lot of times what those are unused enterprise license act product keys. And one of those keys might activate 200 PCs. So they sell some of the extra ones. The problem is over time, the enterprise doesn't know you bought one, so they may use those up on you. And all of a sudden your PC stops being activated. Let me sip a little more water. It's been, yeah. Anyway, for owners of Win 10, it should be a free upgrade. Reportedly, if you're a Windows Insider program participant, you'll get a free copy too. I haven't seen that yet. Generally, if you're running Windows 10 now, the upgrade would show up as an upgrade through Windows Update. Many of you have seen that that's being offered. The other way you can do it is download, use the media creation tool, download and create your own setup media. That can be a bootable flash drive or a dual layer DVD. The setup is about 5 gigabytes, so it's a bit too big for a single layer DVD. But you can put it on a bootable flash drive if you want to. And you can actually run the setup. I'll talk about that a little more in a bit, and upgrade an existing copy of Windows 10. You might do that if you just don't want to wait for Windows Update to get around to delivering it to you. So let's spend a minute on the hardware requirements. I've got a link here that details them out. I guess let's go ahead and follow that. I think if I just click, it'll bring up, and we'll go to the site. Now the problem is this is way off there. I can now get at the, so the basic stuff, I think some of these are a joke. A 1 gigahertz processor with 2 or more cores, probably it'll just barely do it. Compatible 64-bit processor, you can follow that link and it'll get you to a list of the AMD and Intel CPUs that Microsoft is supporting. 4 gig of RAM, that's kind of workable, but on the low side. Disk storage, 64 gig or larger device, that's not realistic either. You want probably about 64 gig of free space, but I would recommend, one, you want a solid state drive. I've got my list of recommendations on my PowerPoint there. Key things though, you got to be running a UEFI BIOS. It's got to support secure boot. Doesn't have to be turned on necessarily. And you've got to have Trusted Platform Module version 2.0 or the AMD equivalent, which is PSP 11. That's Platform Security Processor is what that stands for. You need a graphics card that can do DirectX 12 with this WDDM2. You need a high definition display. I think, again, greater than 9 inches diagonally sounds pretty unrealistic. My original Mac was a 9-inch screen, I remember. It was just real tiny. And also, if you're running the home edition, you have to use a Microsoft account. So you have to have internet connectivity for that to work. All right, so that's what they're saying are the system requirements. And then as you wander on down, there's potentially other stuff that comes into play. So you might want to go read those at your leisure. The 64-bit capable CPU, somewhere buried in there is, it has to support Intel VTX or AMD. This is virtualization technology because Windows 11 does a lot of sandboxing. And the way they do that is they run the app in essentially its own virtual machine. And so you need that VTX or AMD. And maybe a key point, there is no 32-bit version of Windows 11. 64-bit only. That may come into play, as we'll see down here. Old drivers, 32-bit drivers, may not work. My recommended configuration would be more like 2.5 gigahertz, dual or more core. My desktop here is 4 cores with 2 threads each. It's hyper-threaded. So the system sees it as 8 CPUs. You probably want 8 gigabytes of RAM realistically to have a nice experience. You know, it'll run in 4, but you can only run 1 or 2 apps at a time in that mode. The TPM2 or PSP11, typically the newer CPUs, it's right on the CPU, so you don't have a problem. But if you're in that 3-year-old window, you may run into trouble that it's not there. You can turn it on in some UEFI BIOSes, and that's what I did. My system now reports TPM2 as present. My native CPU was supporting AMD PSP1, what was it, 10 point something or other, 2, something like that. You do need the DirectX 12 graphics. And I would recommend have about 80 gig of free space on at least a 256 gig drive. And I'd strongly recommend try to run Windows 11 on a solid state drive. It'll work on a regular hard drive, but it's noticeably slow if you do it that way. I haven't seen so far, most of the Windows 10 compatible apps should run fine on Windows 11. And again, if you've got older printers, scanners, old webcams, they may not, but most, anything that runs on 64-bit Windows 10 probably is going to be okay on Windows 11. Anyway, when we get to the questions, you can ask me about that a bit. So here's a slide. Does it make sense to upgrade or not? When I did this, I was a little before October 5th. It's out now. You'll be able to buy it pre-installed on retail PCs. This is Dell's, Hewlett-Packard's, Lenovo's, Toshiba's, Acer, any of the people that make laptops and desktops. You can build your own, which is what I think I'm going to do probably sometime January, February. I'm not in a big rush right now. For $500 to $900, you can get a very serviceable desktop or laptop. These aren't high-end gaming machines or workstations if you're doing video editing or something. But for just the kind of machine you'd use for surfing and word processing and stuff like that, that's going to be the price range. So you can head out to Costco or Best Buy or any of the other stores, Office Depot. Probably by now you'll be able to find some Windows 11 PCs on the shelf. They may not have a lot of inventory. I'm not sure yet. Any Windows 10 PC that's in inventory now should have no trouble upgrading via Windows Update to Windows 11. Windows 10 is still mainstream. I checked stats. There are 1.3 billion Windows 10 PCs, according to Microsoft right now. So it's not going to disappear overnight. The official support date is till October 2025. So you don't have any real reason that you need to rush out and upgrade an existing Win 10 PC to Windows 11. As we've seen, most of the changes are visual, cosmetic things. Internally, the architecture in Windows 11 is more secure. A lot of what this TPM chip is about is related to that. But you don't see that. You're on 10, should be easy to upgrade when you want to, but again, only if your hardware is compatible. I'd wait a few weeks at least. Today's the 27th. It's been 22 days, 3 weeks essentially since they announced it. But who knows, if your kids are thinking of buying you a PC for the holidays, maybe they'd get you Windows 11 then. Personally, as I said, I'm not in a big rush. Since I can run it in a virtual machine, I'm able to experiment with it and do things. But my main daytime machine, I don't want to upgrade. Even if I could, I could use one of the hacks and install it now. But anyway, how to get it? Easiest is just go buy a new PC. It's all pre-installed, it's tested, you don't have to do anything except you're gonna, if you buy a new PC, have to install your data, your applications, your tools, all that stuff. If you're running a late model Windows 10 PC, it will show up via Windows Update. I'd said best to run the PC health check before you try to install. Let's do that right now, if you haven't seen it. This is my Windows 10 start menu. And I'm going to come down here. There it is, PC health check. It takes it a second to launch. So it's showing me some stuff. Here's my Tom Ryzen, that's my main desktop. 3 years old, 16 gig of RAM. They've got some stuff down here. Anyway, what you want to do is once this is up, hit the check now button. And I get this message. The only problem is my processor isn't supported. You can click here to learn more about supported CPUs. That'll get you to the lists of, if you want to see all the results, you can click this. And here's the checklist of things it checked. This PC does support secure boot. TPM2 is enabled. I've got at least 4 gig of RAM, 64 gig disk. My virtual disk on this virtual machine is 120. System storage is 128 gig. I passed that. The processor does have 2 or more cores. Mine actually has 4 cores and then again 8 threads in all. And my clock speed is at least 1 gigahertz. Mine is 3.6 on this desktop. So the only problem I would have is my processor. All right. You can download the PC Health Check from Microsoft's website. I think Judy mentioned to me they're even pushing it out now, possibly through a link in Windows Update. But if you Google for it, Windows 11 PC Health Check, you'll get the download link right away. It's a fairly small program and it's safe to run. It turns out, I guess they're actually offering the updates to Windows 10 PCs now. Originally, there was talk it wouldn't be until first quarter of next year. But it seems like people, if you run Windows Update, it may show up. By the way, if I run Windows Update, this is again on my Windows 10 box. In my case, this is what I see. Originally, the very first time, I got a big message here to this effect, and I X'd out of that, and then it keeps painting this over here. Here's a place you can get PC Health Check again right there. So that's the way you could do it. And one thing, if you are building a custom PC, there's a question of whether the old product keys from Windows 7 and Windows 8 will activate Windows 11. And I have not tried that yet. They do work to activate a copy of Windows 10. And when I was experimenting with virtual machines, I installed Windows 10 and then tried running Windows Update. And I activated the Windows 10 in the virtual machine. I've got a few spare keys left over from TechNet back in about 2010. And they still work, interestingly. But I haven't tried directly putting a Windows 7 or Windows 8 key in when I'm trying to install Windows 11. I can't say if it works or not. It might be worth a try. But if your PC is compatible, you could always install Win 10, activate it, and then upgrade it to Windows 11. This may be safer than trying to buy one of these brand X product keys right now. And as I said, I don't know what Microsoft's charging you for an OEM product key right now. And as I mentioned, you can always create your own installation media and run the install that way. And that's one of the vehicles that you can use to sort of bypass some of these compatibility issues. Now here we're looking at, again, it kind of highlighted what are some of the compatibility issues. Windows 11 wants to see GUID partition tables on your hard drive. Very few commercial PCs are installed with the old master boot record type partition tables these days. But there is a conversion tool. If you need to use it, you can do that. You can't do UEFI or secure boot without GUID partition tables either. So they all kind of go together. If you've got an old PC, it's possible your UEFI BIOS might need updating. And you'd have to do a flash your BIOS thing. That's not as risky as it might seem, but it's one of these touchy things to do. You want to be careful. You might want to find somebody that's tech savvy and have them help you. Here at Sun City Computer Club, we have our repair lab group that do these kind of things for people. Mentioned already, it's only 64-bit. So any hardware drivers will also have to be 64-bit and signed. You may not be able to find drivers for some of your old gear. I mentioned that before. Some of the utilities software, tool software, I think all the vendors are probably imminently, if not already, out with versions compatible with Windows 11. But some of your old, if you have a scanner, the scanning tool may or may not work with Windows 11. Sometimes the faxing stuff and things like that. I'm not saying they won't, but don't be surprised if you need to go find new versions of that software. And again, you may find some of the old games. This is mainly if they're not DirectX 12 compatible. You may run into some problems with these. Similarly, video, music editors, things like that. So just be aware that could come up and bite you a little bit. If you buy a new PC, I went back and did some checking. I didn't find any built-in easy transfer tool in Windows 11. That was there in some earlier versions. It would move your data files and your settings. Wouldn't do anything for your applications. But you could copy to a flash drive, or you could connect your new PC up through your Ethernet, Wi-Fi or wired, either way. There is a nice tool called Ease US or Ease Us to do PC transfer. It's free. Might want to check that link out. This will move your installed applications as well as your settings and data. I don't know that it's a totally easy process. I have not tried it personally. They also offer a $49.95 Pro version. And then I found another one called Z-Install Easy Transfer, but it's $119. So I'd probably try the free version before plunking $119. Let's see, the App Store we've covered. I don't really need to do that again. Speed Test Pro might be an interesting app though. And finally, here are some web links. There are a few just survey articles about all the features and stuff like that, Microsoft's website. I had one from Tech Republic. These are the 11 things you should do immediately, according to Tech Republic. And there's one about why the security is such a big deal. That's just background information. I found a guy named Crazy Ken, had a very nice video on the features of Windows 11, ran about an hour. Might be worth looking because I didn't cover everything. And then if you really feel like you're technically savvy, I've got a outfit called Linus Tech Tips, had a YouTube video, quite extensive on ways you can bypass the compatibility checks. And I also found an article, APCUG, I think is how that's pronounced, bypassing there are some relatively simple registry edits you can do to Windows 10. And then you run the setup from the setup media. And that will let you bypass the CPU checks, the TPM checks, the memory checks, various things like that. The only thing is there's no guarantee those are going to keep working. They work today, but once you've updated, you don't want to update your existing machine to 11 and then in 3 months or 6 months, something changes and Windows comes back and says, your hardware is not compatible. So if you're doing that, you might want to do that on an older machine just so you have something to play with. But those articles are there. I'll let you follow those links yourself. And that's gotten me to the end of my formal presentation. We timed it pretty well. Let me wake this up, and I'll unshare my screen and hand it back to John and Judy.
Great job, Tom. Lots of great information. And as always, to remind people, we will send a video link with this so you can review it, because I know I have had conversations with people who said that's quite a lot of information. So we'll do that. So Judy, I'll turn things over to you, and we'll do the questions that have been submitted from the chat box. Once those are all taken care of, then we'll open up for comments from the audience.
Thank you. And thank you, Tom. Great presentation. And I have some comments. The product key from Win10 worked for me for an 11 VM, and another one, the keys from 7, 8, and 10 all work. So, and you can use all of your 32-bit applications in Windows 11, no problem.
Apps do run, that's no problem. It's drivers that may be the issue.
Yeah, but people are worried about, oh my gosh, can I use my programs that I've used for 16,000?
Yeah, 32-bit window Office, for instance, it'll still work.
Okay. All right, here we go. Can you install Win11 by unplugging from the internet like you could with Windows 10 and do it as a local user setup and then create a Microsoft account?
I am not completely sure. It would depend on whether it's home or pro.
That would be home he was talking about.
Home is what he's talking about. All I can say is give it a try. In the pro install, there is a place where you can say, I don't have a Microsoft account, and then it'll give you an option to set up a local account.
Okay.
But again, I've only installed it a couple of times so far. I'm not totally, haven't tried every variation on the thing.
But it wouldn't hurt to try, because you're not going to hurt anything. Can you set up a user that does not have access to your files, as in Chrome OS?
Yeah, is this, would this be an internet user? Are we talking about a guest account possibly, or?
It was in the part where you were talking about the different accounts. You set up one for your wife. You might set up one for your son.
Yeah, you can set up permissions. And I guess if you were to set them up at the top level, say the C drive, and say only me, the owner, can access those files, that would block anybody else from getting to them.
Okay.
I didn't go deep into that because it gets awfully tedious for the audience to watch me hunting again. But I believe it's possible. The other thing is you can right click on any folder, go to properties, and then there's security settings. And you can list who's allowed to access a folder.
That's my next question. Will the Win10 keyboard shortcuts still work?
Most of them seem to. I have not tried every one, so I can't say for sure.
Okay. We couldn't network 4 computers in the house on the same router with Windows 10. Can we network them with 11? I
don't know that I've ever had that problem on 10. I'm not sure why that would be. This would be 4 different Windows 10 computers all connecting to the same router, either wired or wireless. Over at the computer club, we have a lab that has 20 computers in it, all running Windows 10, all connecting to the same router, and they're all on the same work group, and it seems to work. So what was there some kind of error message that person was getting on 10 or? Don't know.
That's not it.
I haven't seen, again, I'm in a virtual machine, so I've been able to go out to the internet and map to my own host PC's shared files. I haven't seen anything particularly about networking, though, that would prevent me from networking with more than 4 machines.
Do you
All
know?
file sharing and printer sharing, it's just PC name and share name is still the syntax for that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's
Judy, you're muted.
Yeah, I accidentally hit your mute button, Judy, trying to let somebody in.
you do that. Oh, I'm so pained. Has anybody gotten LibreOffice to work in Windows 11? I can only get a version in safe mode to run Writer, but I can't get Calc to run at all.
Tom, you're muted.
Sorry, I got muted as well.
Yeah, that was a slip because somebody came into the room late.
In our computer club lab, we have 3 of the PCs running Windows 11. And that has LibreOffice installed on those 3, so I believe it does work. And I have no personal experience yet with it. I can't see any particular reason it wouldn't work because it's just a Win32 app as far as I know.
If there's anybody that is here in front of our very eyeballs and has experience with that, if you raise your hand, you'll go to the head of the line up here and you can answer that question from personal experience or not. Tim, unmute.
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself, Tim.
He can't.
Oh, John, unmute everybody, please.
You're going to get a lot of people involved in here now.
Oh,
There he is.
I run LibreOffice on 8, 10, 12, I mean 11. And offhand, I have experienced no problem. The only thing I can think of, if somebody is having an issue, they're probably not up to date on the current version. And you have to update your software. It's a killer if you don't.
thank you. And you are just moving on right past 11 and going on to 12.
Why not? It's around the corner.
I know. I like the number 12 better than 11 anyway. If you click on an A or an M, does it automatically go in your menu down to all of the apps that begin with A or all of the apps that begin with M?
Shall we try that?
It does. It does work.
It does work?
Yep.
Okay.
My LT, maybe that's laptop, is not ready for Windows 11. What do I need to do?
I'm writing an article which will be available the end of the month on compatibility resolution, shall we say. Certain things you could fix, like if it needs more memory or a bigger hard drive, with hardware type patches. The various hacks, if you follow the links at the end of the article, you may be able to get through it that way. Microsoft has an officially sanctioned registry edit that you can use, but it will still require at least TPM 1.2 be present. You can't totally bypass it. It may be more trouble than it's worth, though, if you have to do very many things to an old PC to get it to work. Then it's time to think about going and buying a new one.
Black Friday is just around the corner.
That's
And
right.
a lot of, many of the big box stores are already having their Black Friday specials. They've been doing it for the last 2 weeks. You might find a bargain, and when you look, you see that darling little blue flower or whatever it is on the majority of the computers now, no matter what
Okay.
big box store it is.
So they're getting inventory in now.
Yeah.
That's-
What version of VMware are you using?
I think it's 6.1. It's the latest one I could find. I will say I tried VirtualBox and had no luck. Could not get Windows 11 to install in it. VirtualBox does not expose the underlying TPM, whatever it is, whether it's firmware or hardware or whatever. And I think that was the big objection.
Hey, Milton, have you tried doing your VirtualBox and looking at Windows 11? He's my club member.
I have not. I actually just now, as we were talking, downloaded the Windows 11 ISO, so I'm going to try it.
Very good. Let me know.
I will.
Does the mic, are there keyboard commands to switch from desktop to desktop to desktop when you create, you know, the more than one, so you're not cluttered?
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, though. It's Windows, might be the Windows F4 key or Windows tab, some combination like that. Best thing would be to, in the search in Windows 11, search for keyboard shortcuts, and you'll get the whole monster list, and you can find out what it is.
And I bet if you Google it or DuckDuckGo it, that's for John, you'd find a list that's this long on all the keyboard shortcuts, even though most of them are going to be the same.
Yeah.
Have you had any issues with adding alternate browsers like Chrome or Firefox?
I installed Chrome in the virtual machine just to be sure that would work. Haven't tried Firefox, but I don't see any reason it wouldn't go as well.
And two people want to know how you get rid of the widgets.
There was a setting in Taskbar behaviors to turn off the widgets if you don't want them. So I could show you that again if you want.
That's what drives me crazy, something called taskbar behavior. That just doesn't sound techie enough for me.
Oh,
Does the Windows button plus Shift plus letter S work to snip as in Windows 10?
yeah, I haven't tried it, but here, let me go ahead and share my screen again for a second. And we'll get back to my virtual machine. I'll wake it up. Okay, read me that Windows Shift S.
I just did it and it does.
Yep.
Windows Shift plus S.
I got, yeah, rectangular snap. Yeah, this is the newer snipping tool, I think.
And I'm so bent out of shape about that.
As long as I'm here, taskbar settings. And again, I'm in the dark theme now. But down here is taskbar. Well, here's where you turn off. You want widgets off, just uncheck that and the widgets go away there. I can turn off the chat. Any of those that you want to turn on or off, that's easy to do. Okay, let me stop sharing.
If you're running Windows on a virtual machine, does the computer still need minimum RAM?
Yeah, you want to have the virtual machine have at least 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Okay.
Now,
If
you can use one of the registry hacks to override that. If you want to use a 2 gigabyte virtual machine or 3, it would work with the registry hacks. but it's going to be slower in hell. So give it 4. I gave mine 6, the one we've been looking at today. So
If we achieve TPM 2.0 via a UEFI BIOS change, is that a permanent hardware fix?
yeah. And the other way you can do it is many of the motherboards have a little standoff jack. You can buy a TPM module from your motherboard vendor, or there's some universal ones I've seen. I Googled around. About $20, you can buy the thing, plug it in to this jack on your motherboard, and then you've got TPM 2.0.
Okay.
And that might be a fair fix. Yeah.
Is handling of HEIF or HEIC photos and container file types included by default, or do you have to download and pay for extra drivers from the store?
There you got me. I don't know.
Okay. Will motherboard manufacturers provide updates for non-compatible PCs for UEFI, Secure Boot, and TPM issues?
Well, if your motherboard's pretty new, probably you've got a fighting chance. If it's pretty old, I would be doubtful. I need to check. My motherboard is made by Gigabyte. They're one of them big motherboard vendors. There is a pending to be installed UEFI BIOS update for mine. It won't resolve the fact, though, my CPU is not on the compatibility list.
My BIOS,
yeah.
American Megatrends BIOS 5.19 seems not to show a TPM capability. The Chinese manufacturer says they're about to issue a BIOS solution. Does that sound right? To flash the firmware and rectify the issue?
Yeah. But again, they're going to have to get the new BIOS and flash the BIOS that they have on their motherboard. I would think that's how it would work. Then it will offer the ability to turn on TPM 2.0 as a firmware version of TPM. So it's a bit of an intricate process to do.
The Chinese BIOS solution is for a laptop that is supposedly less than 6 months old.
Well, the laptop might be, but the motherboard might not be.
That's true.
And stuff stays in inventory for years. You got to pay when you're shopping at, say, Newegg or somebody like that. Pay attention to what you're getting.
Well, it's like Bill James says about Chromebooks. There is an end of life for them. That doesn't mean the end of life when you turn it on. It's from the end of life when it is manufactured.
Right.
So that laptop could have been sitting on the shelf somewhere for a gazillion years. I have all my questions answered. Over to Pierre.
Okay.
Yes, hi, everybody. I just wanted to resolve some of the unanswered questions or comments. There was a question about having a new user account, not be able to access the primary user's files. Since the introduction of NTFS years ago, whatever that was, the default Windows behavior is that any user does not have access to another user's files. So that should solve the problem. In terms of the home version of Windows 11, can you bypass the requirement for a Microsoft account? I've tried. For a Windows 11 installation from scratch, I was able to bypass the requirement by disconnecting the internet. However, when I did a Windows 10 home upgrade to Windows 11, I was not able to do that. That did not work. The current version of VMware Player is 16.2. It was released in the past week. However, I've done most of my testing with 16.1. there are keys to switch desktop. They've been available in Windows 10. I'm assuming the same would work in Windows 11. In terms of the thickness of the scroll bars, there's been a setting in Windows 10 since 2018 or so, I forget. In the search bar, if you search for scroll space bar, you'll get to a setting that allows you to make those scroll bars always wide. Now, they are thinner in Windows 11 than they are in Windows 10, but you can make them at least slightly wider than what Tom was showing us.
I think that setting also allows you to always have them be visible.
Correct.
So
That was the case in Windows 10,
Yeah.
and they reversed the wording of the setting, which was always on in Windows 10 and is off in Windows 11, but it means the same. You can change that setting.
Right.
In terms of I'm sorry. Okay. In terms of HDIC support, there was a free app in the Microsoft Store that allows you to add compatibility. I haven't checked that for Windows 11, but I would assume it's still there. And that's what I have.
Thank you. Over to Edward, who needs to get rid of his horse and unmute himself. Thanks.
Hi, Edward. You're still muted, Edward.
Edward, unmute yourself, please.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. First thing about God mode, you create a folder and rename it that string.
Hello?
I didn't get Edward's question exactly. He was talking about
Yeah.
God mode.
Got me now?
Yeah.
Okay, the God mode, create a folder and rename it that string.
Yes.
Folder. Yeah.
I did that, and when here I'll show you the.
Well, I have God mode run under Windows 11, so.
When somebody put that same answer in the chat box, I said, it's one of those things. It worked today when I practiced it, but oh gosh, when I gave the presentation, it didn't work.
Yeah, just create a.
It opens up, but it's not God mode. This is the magic string. There actually are two different ones. I Googled and found for Windows 11, there's a different string. I tried that as well, did not help. Neither of the Windows 10 one or the Windows 11 one worked. And yet, oddly, I gave this session a month ago to our club and set up exactly the same name for the folder, and it worked fine.
Well, anyways, I have Windows 11 open up right now, and I got that God mode.
Good.
Okay.
So it's working for you. Are you on a virtual machine or native?
I'm using Hyper-V virtual machine.
Okay, well, actually, when I did it last time, I was on Hyper-V a month ago. I've switched to VMware.
Okay,
so that could be an artifact of which virtual machine I'm on.
Well, anyways, here's a hint for when you create a Windows 11 virtual machine. Make sure you go into Generation 2, because Generation 2 allows you to have TPM, where Generation 1 does not.
Right.
Okay. So anyways, I've also installed, what is it? Word processing. What's that? LibreOffice.
LibreOffice.
Yeah, I put up the Word type program and also the spreadsheet. They both worked on a Windows 11 for me.
Good.
That's good.
And also, I've also installed Office 2007. It worked fine. And also, I've installed. There's a couple of things I've used on Windows 10. That's Windows 10 Games and Windows 10 Gadgets. They both work under Windows 11.
All right, good to know.
except for one gadget which doesn't like it because it's looking for real CPU and it won't work unless it has a real CPU, so it wouldn't work. But also here's I ran something familiar with it's called CPU-Z. People familiar with some program called CPU-Z?
I've heard of it.
Okay, if I run CPU-Z under Windows 11 virtual machine, it's when I have when I set it up, I have 4 CPUs. But according to CPU-Z, I have 2 cores and 4 threads. So it's treating the 4 as 4 threads, not 2 actually CPU cores.
Cool. Jerry Crow, you are on.
Thank you. I'll drop my hand here. Hang on. I have a question regarding the download for the local install, the image download. I'd like to put it in a virtual machine. I had a full copy of VMware for a long time, but decided not to pay the money to get a new one. So I'm running VMware Player 16 point whatever, the 16.2. Somebody mentioned that. That's the current one. How do there's a place I can go so I can download the image. I'll put it on a USB stick. Now, can I use that to install it in a clean, brand new virtual machine?
That's pretty close to what I did. I actually just made the ISO file. It's about a 5 gigabyte ISO image. And I pointed the virtual DVD drive to the ISO file and then booted the VMware virtual machine. And
Okay.
it took right off reading the virtual DVD, and you got to hit a key quickly to say boot from the DVD.
Yes.
But then it took off. And at the right point, I pressed Shift F10, entered my registry hacks so that it would install even though my CPU was not on the compatibility list.
Yeah.
And away it went.
I'm gonna have to
So
do that.
it's a big
because
deal to do.
I have a Core i7, but it's 6th generation. It's not
Yeah.
new enough. Okay, so that's fine. In your presentation, if we're gonna get a copy, there's a pointer in there to where to go to find out what those hacks are, the registry
Now,
hacks.
the second to the last slide, I had all my web links. The ones you want to look at were one of the links in there.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Bud,
Judy.
over to you. Unmute yourself, please. Just hold your space bar down.
Okay, I've got Windows 11 installed on multiple virtual machines, done with VirtualBox 6.1, VMware Workstation Player 16.202, and on the Pro version of VMware.
Hyper-V.
Yeah, and VMware Pro, there's a couple of settings in there that set up both the TPM, so I actually installed it without no hacks or anything. The Pro
Right.
version did it. The Player version, you had to put the hacks in.
Right.
But other than that, it seems to be working fine. And I agree with Tom that it's not a must-have piece of software.
Jerry, you're on.
Yeah, Tom, thanks very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I think you may have addressed this, but I just wanted to double check to make sure that I understood you or heard you correctly. Would it be any more difficult or challenging to run Office 2019 on Windows 11 than running Office 365?
No.
Yeah, wouldn't think so. They're essentially the same.
Okay.
Um,
No compatibility issues that you're aware of?
I would expect 2019 to be the most compatible, if anything.
Oh, okay. No, I
it's
thought
Microsoft's product.
I just thought that Microsoft might have had more of an incentive to push people to subscribe to 365, so they might have made Windows 11 more difficult to handle Office 2019, but that's not been your experience.
No, not so far.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And there is an Office 2021. Over to Mike.
Hey, Tom.
Hi, Mike.
Your VMware environment, is it virtual player, the free version
Yeah,
or the pro?
the free version, just the VMware player.
So you had to put the hack in for the TNT, not recognizing
Right.
the TPM as well.
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
Okay, just wanted to make.
I did a clean install.
Right.
And
Yeah, I tried to do an update. I've tried to do going
the
from
upgrade,
Windows 10
I was
and
having no
updating to
luck.
11, and the hacks wouldn't work with that in
Yeah.
the VMware environment for some reason.
I would assume from all this VM talk that the majority of the people haven't bitten the bullet and actually moved to Windows 11. They're trying it out in a virtual environment before they decide to do it. I know Bill James has downloaded the real thing on all of his computers except for one. So it's interesting to hear all this talk. We're checking it out. Now, Richard, you had your hand up a long time ago. Did you get your question answered? And that would, there you go.
I was just going to make a comment about LibreOffice. I had a couple of machines recently where it stopped working under Windows 10. Some sort of, and trying to reload it still wouldn't work. I ended up downloading WPS Office, and that, again, a free application. That did work okay.
Thank you.
Good to know.
Over to David.
Question on the using it out with a VM machine. Do you need to have TPM2 on the originating machine, or can you simulate VM for TPM2 in the VM machine?
It sort of depended on which virtual machine manager you were using. Hyper-V had a checkbox in the settings to turn on TPM2.0. The VMware Player, which is the free version, I found nothing that would let me do it there, so I had to use a registry hack that basically said bypass the TPM check. And again, you can read the links at the end of my slideshow. I had a link that went to all these different versions of registry hacks that you could try.
Right, I've already printed out the link.
The VMware Player, again, was not exposing the underlying host OS's TPM setting to the guest OS. And there's no way around that. They may be fixing that or have fixed it. I haven't downloaded a new version in the last week of the VMware Player. So they might have taken care of that.
Is there a place where you can download the ISO file?
You can just Google for Windows 11 ISO download. It is available, but mainly they steer you to the media creation tool. You run that and tell it what you want, and then it just builds it on your disk. And it's about the same speed as downloading it directly.
Thank you.
So,
Steve, unmute, please.
I've got an AMD that I bought August of last year, and it's got 16 CPUs and all the rest of the bells and whistles. So if this darn machine can't run Windows 11, like 95% of the computers on the planet shouldn't be able to. So I ran this, the TPM.MSC, which is a service that's supposed to tell you what TPM you've got. It said I didn't have one. So I shut the thing down, started up, went into the BIOS, looked through all the settings, didn't see anything in there for any TPM or anything. So when the last Windows update came up, there was a PC health check. I ran that, and it said, yeah, I've got a TPM 2.0, perfectly fine, and it's enabled and running. You want to explain that one? Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, some of these checks were not too good quality at the beginning. The health check now seems to work pretty well. In my BIOS, the setting was FTPM, firmware TPM. That's what I turned on, and then it reported I had TPM 2.0.
So it's probably buried in there somewhere then in this one, I guess.
I didn't have much trouble finding it, but yeah, it wasn't at the top level screens. I had to navigate through a couple levels of menus to find it. But
a comment from Fred, TPM can go by other names in various UEFI BIOS.
that's true.
So it'll be a surprise, you guys. What can I tell you?
Yeah.
You'll have to play detective. Mike, you're on.
Yeah, just a comment on the virtualization environments in TPM. I've discovered that going back to my original question, that the VMware Workstation Player, the free version, doesn't allow for TPM at all. You have to have the pro version, and it'll pass through the TPM environment from whatever your host machine is.
Right.
VirtualBox, they're working on a pass-through method as well, but they haven't got that yet. No telling when that'll happen. And I haven't tried any of the other virtualizations environments to see if they work.
If you're running Windows 10 Pro, the Hyper-V is bundled in. You have to go and into it.
Right.
My frustration with Hyper-V is it wouldn't pass through my sound.
Right. I've had that experience.
For a demo, that was going to be kind of pitiful. So that's why I went with VMware. With the hack, the VMware does a pretty nice job on it.
That's it.
Okay.
Please remember, if you do not have your first and last name on your thumbnail, you've sat through this entire 2.5 hours and you'll receive nothing. Absolutely nothing. Bud, over to you.
Yeah, on that VirtualBox, there is a TPM patch out there that Oracle has put out. I tried it, it didn't work. But they have also announced that when they release version 7.0, all that stuff is going to be built into it. So when 7.0 is going to come out, who knows? Because they're at version 6.1 right now. So sometime in the future, VirtualBox will be compatible.
John, over to you.
Yeah.
Hey, hi.
John.
A quick thing. If you go to the device manager and look under security devices, you should see whether or not you have TPM. At least it does on my machine, my brand new machine. So,
that's true.
So I'm done.
Thank you. He's another one of my members. And you had 2 questions, but you only had to ask 1. Very good. I do not have any more questions. Well, I do have a question about how can, in your live mail, how can you set it to use a Gmail? Is it the same as Windows 10?
Yeah, it should be. When I set up my account, I just told it my email address, and it already had a built-in AI sort of expert, knew how to set up a Cox account in my case, but I've done it with Gmail, and it really just sets it up with the right addresses and ports, and it's IMAP 4 typically is what they set them up for now. Takes a little work. If you want to still use POP3, you've got to manually set up your account and put in your own server addresses and ports and all that, but you can do it.
Cool.
Cool.
Do we have any more questions?
As we say, going once, going twice.
But that's what I do.
It's gone.
I'm going to let you, as soon as my printer spits this out, I am going to let you know what our virtual technology presentations are going to be on November 6th. I expect to see everybody there. Preserving your digital photos with Mark Schulman. Finding and using historical newspapers, our resident genealogist, Sue Mueller. Bob is going to give his 2021 security presentation for anybody in the world that has not had it at their meeting. He gave 29 presentations this month, and he will be giving 4 more in November where the date was already taken. And how to find your smartphone, whether it's an Android or an iPhone, I believe. And then we're having our ever popular annual meeting that I'm sure you are all looking forward to. And we will have the contest winners for digital photo, e-bulletin, newsletter, and website.
And a reminder, go ahead, Judy.
And we will have a roundtable in January, like we did early on, like we did this January. It's 2022. What are you planning for your group? And how can APCUG help? That will be our first Wednesday workshop. And we've got Wednesday workshops in January. John will talk about the November ones. And, you know, I'm working on December. Over to you, John, to let us know what's happening next month with Wednesday workshops.
I was going to say too that the roundtable topic is going to be 2022. What are you going to do?
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Next month, we're going to do a kind of a unique one that the idea came out of our Linux workshop this month. We're going to have 2 workshops, one on the 10th for Windows and one on the 17th for Linux. And it's going to be the themed called Ask Away. And we'll have kind of a panel plus everybody else who's going to be there. We're just going to let people ask those questions that have been on the top of their heads, at the tip of the tongues, and they can't find answers to. And we're going to see if the audience can help us solve all of those problems. So when you get your registration, along with the typical name and group, not logos, there will be a spot that you can ask a question on the Google form, because we will take those questions and we will address them first, like we do in a presentation, and then we'll let everybody else ask questions until we run out of time. So that one's going to be a good one, because we all have those questions that, well, sometimes they're questions that we don't want to ask, so you get to type it in and just submit it, and Judy won't tell who gave this question. Judy,
and we will have a few people that will answer questions when nobody raises their hand to answer it. So we'll have answerers also. Yeah. One quick last thing, Tom. Any quick tips on full install? I have lots of laptops. Should I use a USB or what?
Probably you're going to want to use a USB, because again, the final size of the setup is bigger than a normal DVD. And unless you've got, you need double layer DVDs to burn a DVD that you can use for setting up Windows 11.
And the other thing is that a lot of the laptops don't have CDs anymore.
Right, that's true. So an 8 gig flash drive is fine, but it's going to be dedicated to that. You can't put the setup on it and have other data there as well. It'll erase it and then burn it.
Cool.
Okay.
What you will receive from me today is the PowerPoint presentation. And there's lots of comments and links to things in the chat box. I will include this in the email, because it takes some time to answer the questions in the chat box and to get the video downloaded and fixed and back up again. So we'll start with a PDF, and any links that people have added to the mix here. So again, Tom, thank you very much for doing
Thank
that.
you for inviting me. I had a really fine time today.
But we hope
Great
that
to meet all of
you
you.
join us for our Windows Q&A so you can help answer some of
I'll plan to sit in.
Oh, outstanding. I check your name off my list. Thank you.
Yay.
Hey,
Okay.
see how that works, John? And, oh, Melton has that was just a clap. And we'll see you on the 6th which is a Saturday, not a Wednesday.
Same time, same channel.
Same place.
Yeah.
Bathrobe and fuzzy slippers.